Hello, thank you for tuning into another episode of Take 10 on Tuesday with the Tennessee Tribune. I'm Jason Luntz. Today I've invited a special guest that is spearheading one of the most important projects in recent Nashville history. Today I'm with Henry Hicks of the National Museum of African American Music. How you doing today, sir?
I'm great, man. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Man, listen, I'm excited. It's so much good news about the museum. It's been I've been in the Nashville area for a few years now, and I've heard so much about it building up. So I thought it was very important that we let our audience know about the great things that have happened so far.
Well, again, I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to sharing the story.
All right, great. So let's just jump right in. Recently, the mayor made a public announcement that the old convention center is going to have a bunch of new things, retail, and including the museum. Absolutely.
So at the end of March, we formalized what we've been working on for the last couple of years. And so the National Museum of Music of African American Music will be located on Broadway, at 5th and Broadway,
Wow.
in about 50,000 square feet of the newly redeveloped convention center site that will be there. And so, again, the museum will be there. There'll be some live music venues. There'll be several 100,000 square feet of retail space. And there'll also be an office tower and a residential tower built. So that whole section, that whole 6-acre section right in the middle of downtown Nashville will be completely redeveloped, and the National Museum of African American Music is going to be the anchor of that site.
That's great. So basically you can work, play, and learn.
Absolutely. all in one place. Have a good time. Listen to some music. Have a great time.
Oh, man, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, how were you able to, I know it's probably was a lot to get there, but how were you able to pull this off? There's such an important place on Broadway in Nashville.
Well, it's tremendous, and I really can't take credit for it. I mean, I must say that, folks like Francis Guest and T.B. Boyd, Connie Kennard, Kevin Lavender, Butch Spirit, and folks who've been very involved in this project for more than a decade have been around this conversation and trying to move the ball forward in terms of getting the project built and moved along. And then, of course, Mayor Dean and his administration have been very supportive, along with Councilman Maynard and Gilmore have been very supportive of what we're doing for a number of years. And so for the last 2 or 3 years, we've really just been having conversation about what the best way was to move the project along. And as the Music City Center opened, there was a question that was raised by the community at large in terms of what are we going to do with the convention center site on Broadway. And so we just started a conversation with the mayor's office and said, wouldn't it be great to have this national museum right in the heart of our city, 2 blocks from the Country Music Hall of Fame, 2 blocks from the Music City Center, directly across the street from Bridgestone Arena. And this way we can complete the Music City brand by making sure that people who come to visit us for leisure and for business purposes understand that Music City is completely Music City. Country music, rock and roll, rap, hip hop, rock and roll, blues, jazz, all of it. And so with all of the cultural assets right there in that location, it makes it easy for the world to know really what the definition of Music City is.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, is that why Nashville was chosen? Because it already has a great reputation for music, or were there any other reasons?
Well, I think that is a big part of it, but I would say that this project for building an African American museum here in Nashville, again, has been an idea that has evolved over the last 10, almost 15 years, actually. And so what started off as kind of an idea for a museum that would include music, art, culture, history, really over time, the board of directors of the organization, as it has changed and evolved over time, really began to hone in on this notion that if we're Music City, then we can focus our museum on the music, and we can actually tell the story of our history and our culture and our art through the music.
Yes.
And so we can kind of get at making sure we tell the local story through the contribution that Nashville has had on the world. And then we can tell that story to the world even by kind of opening up the aperture, if you will, on the lens to let a little bit more light in from around the country and around the world and bring folks to Nashville to learn again about the overall Music City story, inclusive of the African American contribution.
Oh man, that's great. That's great. Now, speaking of African American contribution to music, will there be any way that Jefferson Street will finally get some shine on how important it was to our music?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a big part is we're doing our research right now to put together what the content of the galleries will be. A big part of it is telling the Nashville story. And so that has to do with all the tremendous artists that that really found Nashville, Jefferson Street, and Charlotte Avenue to be the cradle of their own musical careers. And so, we all know the stories of Jimi Hendrix along this corridor, but you can also look at Little Stevie Wonder and Aretha Franklin, and many others who spent a lot of time here, and who really this was a major stop along the way of building their own big careers. Wow. And so we're going to be able to tell that story in the museum.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Now we we have the location. I know in the past there's been a lot of community events and fundraisers for the museum. Are we still in that process of needing to raise money?
We are. I mean, so we're actually feeling pretty pleased. We're about 2/3 of the way there.
Okay.
But we've got a little bit more than $10 million or so left to raise, and that would include an endowment for the museum, so that we make sure that there's capital in the bank to kind of sustain operations once things get up and going. So we got a little bit of a ways to go, but there's plenty that we're already doing in the community now in the way of programming and events and that sort of thing. We do a program with Metro Public Schools and the public library system called From Nothing to Something.
Wow. Where
we introduce young people to the origin of many of the instruments that we all take for granted. So if you look at a percussion instrument, that might have come to this country from Africans playing with spoons and other instruments to create a percussive sound in those times in the 1600s. Similarly, the guitar that we take for granted and so ubiquitous around town today may have come from a cigar box and a broom handle and some string.
Wow.
With a hole cut in it, so a cigar box guitar. And so we introduced those kinds of things to kids in the school system as a way of helping them connect today's music to their foreparents and their history and their culture.
That's important.
And so we're doing that kind of thing. We also have a program that we do about once a month that's called Sips and Stanzas, which is more of adult education, where we bring adults in to talk about various subjects around the music. And it tends to be very interactive, lots of questions and answers, and then we try to always have some music be a part of that as well. But that's a fun time for folks to get together and understand that the museum is coming along, and to appreciate that this is the way that the museum will interact with the general public, even after it's open. We're in the process of doing some things digitally to make some of that programming available on the web, and so that it can be available around the country and around the world. On the fundraising front, we actually had a very successful time. We've raised about $1.5 million out of the African American community in the last year.
Great.
Yes, just to demonstrate to the city and to the community that African Americans in Nashville are saying that they very much want this museum to come along. And so folks have put their money where their mouth is, and they're writing some checks, and so we're very appreciative of that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Now, for people to get more information on how to help donate and other programs, can you give the audience your web address?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us all over the web at the NMAAM, which is our Twitter handle, as well as our Instagram page and also our Facebook page. And then our web address is also nmaam.org. So you can find us there.
Oh, that's great. Now, before I let you go, I always like to ask my guests, because everyone knows I'm a big fan of Nashville and all the growth here. How long have you been in Nashville?
Been in Nashville since 2009, so it's been about 6 years now.
Okay, so you've been here to see. What do you think about the growth here, and how African Americans can play a part of that?
Well, I think the growth of the city overall is tremendous. It's a great time to be here. It's an awful lot of fun. I think there's a lot of opportunity here for everyone. I think that this museum will make a big difference from a cultural perspective in terms of, once again, defining Music City as the it city for everyone. And so I think that will bring a lot more in the way of cultural interest in folks, friends, relatives, neighbors, homeboys coming to town to visit and hang out and have a good time. And I also think that can bring along, should make it much easier for businesses to recruit diverse talent to come to town when they see that this place called Nashville is someplace where they're welcome. And also should spur and be an encouraging tool for entrepreneurs of color who, again, want to find a place to call home. And they first need to feel like it is home. So this museum can help with that, go an awful long way. And so that's why not only do we want the museum to be a national resource, but we very much want it to be a community resource and a place where kids at schools want to just kind of come hang out after school and have parents come and pick them up. We want it to very much be a place where folks have their celebrations, their parties, their weddings, their corporate events and functions and that sort of thing, so that it's a place where they want to come and be a part of the story. And so we think that this is a big tool for making Nashville an inclusive place for everyone.
Yes, and when is the ETA for the opening?
So we expect that demolition will start in early 2016, and that the museum will open in early 2018. So it's just about 2.5 years away. So time is flying.
Yes, it is. I was going to schedule my next birthday, but I guess I'm going to have to wait a couple
of
years.
Wait a couple of birthdays. Wait a couple of birthdays and we'll be ready.
It will be ready? Okay. Well, man, I really appreciate it.
All right, yeah.
Very exciting stuff. And once again, you've been tuning into Take 10 on Tuesday with the Tennessee Tribune. See you next time.